Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Hello, Arky. Where did you go?
Oh, hello. I had to move over to see my mute button. No, I was just making an entrance. Oh, hello. Welcome, everyone.
Oh, hello. And a happy new year to you.
Oh, yes. Likewise. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes. We're nearly finished with our Star Trek, so it's not so happy for us.
We have but one episode left.
One episode.
A single episode.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to make it.
Well, there will be more Trek coming this year, and we can have at it with that.
I mean,
Set Phasers will be back before season 4. We will continue making.
Oh, that's
something
for damn sure. Because we have to do something.
Oh, we sure do.
Well, welcome to Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. My name is Culber.
And I'm Steph Mans.
And today's star date is stardate 3011.21.8. No, not 11.21, 1121.8. That would be then I would be using a different, doesn't matter how star dates work. But if there were 2 points in it, I think you'd be traveling. You'd be moving through space and time.
Okay.
That's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who have Googled these sorts of things.
Right.
I have. And also, I have watched season 3, episode 12 of Star Trek Discovery, entitled "There Is a Tide." I say that because there's the ellipses at the end, so you have to say,
yeah.
"There is a tide."
That was awkward, wasn't
it? Well, that's how I think it should go. Star Trek.
Can you stop making that sound so awkward?
I love it so much. All right. This episode was great. It's definitely a to be continued episode. Oh, it's hard to even start to talk about it because I'm so nervous.
Oh, it was such a great episode. I'm excited.
But it was wonderful. Wait, let's run it down so I can just get it over with. It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? What just happened? Can you run it down for me? We sure can. We'd love to run it down for you.
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
It's the fun stuff.
The fun stuff. Okay, basically, we're coming into I probably said this for like the last 4 episodes, but we're in the home stretch. And basically, you may remember in the last episode, Discovery goes to the Verubin nebula because they think that's maybe where the burn started, and there's a whole thing, and the away team goes down there. But while they're out there, Osyraa shows up on the Viridian, and Tilly's in charge of the ship, but Osyraa is able to take over the ship. And then just as Michael and Book are coming back, having left some people on the surface of the planet to expose to the radiation and the Kelpian that may have caused the burn, Osyraa manages to hijack the spore drive and jump Discovery away back to presumably Star Trek headquarters. And so we begin this episode, There Is a Tide, with a fake pursuit where Osyraa is on the bridge of Discovery, but she's got her people on the Viridian pretending to be chasing the Discovery, and Discovery's running. And basically, Admiral Vance is in HQ, and he's like, what's the deal? There's no word from Saru. Their comms must be down. Should we let them in? Because remember, there's that big protective bubble around Federation HQ. And basically, on Discovery, the chain has taken over all the computer systems. They're trying to delete everything, or like sort of like install all chain software on Discovery systems. However, there is a small bit of data they're not able to delete. It appears to be just some old Earth entertainment. Goofy. Yes, I see your face cup. Ladies and gentlemen, why would you put my face forward? I can't stand
That's the way that it happens to be. My face ends up somewhere in here.
Hey, gang, there's a cup with our faces on it. Honestly, yours looks bigger than mine.
I think mine's smaller.
Oh.
Anyway, if you want to get one, let me know. You can email us at setphaserspodcast@gmail.com.
Sure.
Remember that.
Mm-hmm. or
They hold.
you can just.
They're very decent receptacles.
They are quite decent. They recept very well. I take exception to one of the faces.
Sorry, I interrupted your chain of thought.
No. Oh, Chain, how dare you? You will never break my chain of thought. Never break chain.
Sorry, I shouldn't overuse that, but still. Anyway, we'll come back to that later.
I've only got one episode left. Definitely bring out the chain a couple more times.
And I still don't have my tinfoil time sound effect.
Well, I mean, I played it for you that one time and it ruined everyone's life. So that's beside the point. I could send it to you tonight for the last episode, maybe.
Please.
But what would be the point of tinfoil time?
Well, actually, it would be a really good episode for tinfoil time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
let's not get. We're running it down. We're running it down.
Sorry.
This is like how we talk after the show is over. Back on track.
I'm hyper.
Okay, so the chain is taking. Why? I'm not falling for the bait. The chain is taking over the systems. They can't delete what we know has to be the sphere data. Anyway, they say there's very little of it remaining on the system's computer, so they decide not to be too worried about it. Meanwhile, we find out that the bridge crew, along with Captain Tilly, is being held hostage by some people from the chain, but also in walks the cowboy from episode 2.
I don't have any cowboy noise.
That's all right. He doesn't deserve them.
Yeah.
He's a little loser. I know he has a real name, and it's Zara. Zara. They say Zara, but I like to call him Spurs. So Spurs walks in. He's like, "Hey, remember me?" And he's talking to Tilly, because you may remember Tilly decided not to kill him, but to let him leave on foot and fight the ice. And he goes, "You should have, next time, remember, finish the job instead of leaving it to the ice." And it's his mangled hand from all the frostbite. Osyraa does not want any of the crew touched. So they're being watched by these operators. I forget what they're called. The people who work, like the foot soldiers, basically, for the chain. But they can't be harmed. They just need to be kept. And they throw in Rin among the hostages, the Andorian that had his antenna cut, that was saved by Michael and Giorgio and Book from that planet. Meanwhile, Book and Michael are in hot pursuit, but they don't have a spore drive, so they're using the courier network slipstream thing. And what's interesting about this, I thought this was an interesting detail, is that the slipstream is full of the wreckage of other ships that got all jacked up and destroyed. So they're having to dodge all this debris as they're flying through the as they're flying through the slipstream.
Oh, I actually really want to make a rewind thing now.
Yeah, diction is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth as they're flying through the slipstream. And their shields are at 20%, and they're basically trying to catch up and warn the Federation before the Federation is taken. Vance, who's like I guess the Discovery is like a minute away or 30 seconds away from getting to the barrier where it would get dashed on the shield. So he has to decide whether or not to let them in. He decides to make an opening just big enough for Disco, because remember, Disco seems like it's being pursued by the Viridian. Michael and Book fall out of warp. They find that out at HQ. Michael tries to send a message, but the comms are fried, so she's not able to alert HQ that Osyraa is actually on Discovery. So they see that Discovery is about to go through the hole. It's going to have to let down its shields to pass through the membrane. Book takes the ship. Oh, yeah. And he crashes it into the hangar just as the shields drop, and boom, we hit the credits. So it's fairly exciting and insane opening. Yeah.
So you and I were watching this together
on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I know we did this. We're nerds, but it was quite fun. And we were like, "Oh, you press play, I press play," and we watched the whole thing together, kind of live streaming and texting each other.
That's true. It sounds worse when you tell everyone.
But my point was that opening sequence, you and I were both like, you know.
Yeah, we were like, go, 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 go.
What a great opening sequence.
You know what's interesting? I feel like I'm going to give you credit, because during the credits, you're like, "Hey, have we seen the little drone things?" And I was like, "I think we saw them repairing the ship. I'm pretty sure that's been taken care of." And I felt that I was right until the last 47 seconds of this episode. Anyway, getting back to the episode. So Viridian stays outside of the bubble in like an aggressive posture, and Osyraa tells everyone to stay at the ready. Meanwhile, she goes to visit the person that she has who's sort of like trying to figure out how to get the spore drive to work, and his name is Invigilator Aurelio.
I always thought invigilators were people that, invigilated a test. They would just sit. There were teachers that just sat and watched you take tests.
Well, I guess he does later when he's talking to Stamets say that he works at the academy. Because apparently, I guess Osyraa's whole pitch, I won't get ahead of ourselves, but her whole pitch is that they have the best science places in the world. Anyway, so she goes to talk to him. She calls him the greatest scientist in 3 sectors. And she is very kind to him, sort of uncharacteristically nice to him. Yes.
Are we shouting out to Kenneth Mitchell, who played Invigilator Aurelio?
Yes. Shout out Kenneth Mitchell, who played
who played him wonderfully. But Kenneth Mitchell, as you may be aware, played Cole, our Vulcan Cole with the red thing on his face. In the previous seasons.
You did the thing that we keep doing. Our Klingon Cole.
What did I say?
You said Vulcan.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear.
Klingon That's just Cole. What we do on this show.
I don't know why we do that. He played Klingon Cole, and then he took a break. So this year, I think around February. Last year around February, he announced that he has ALS. So he was invited back to Discovery with a part that would work for him. And this is it.
Right, and so Invigilator Aurelio is in some sort of conveyance vehicle that allows him to move around. No wheels, nor is it a chair. So I don't know if you can call it either of those things, but it's substituting for
chair.
A hover thing. Yes. Also, Klingon Cole, just so everyone knows, on the record as having been a merry old soul. A merry old soul is he.
What?
He called for his wife, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his Fiddler's 3. No, you don't know that poem?
Oh, it's coming flooding back to me now.
Old King Cole? No?
Oh, Old King Cole. Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah,
I needed
Klingon
the
Cole.
reference.
He was
Old Klingon Cole. I see.
Old Klingon Cole.
I see what you did there. That's very good.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Important things are being done. Wow, we're off the rails so
really
early.
Distracting you today. This is what happens when I have tea instead of gin when we do this.
Yeah, you need to really gin it up. Okay, so where was I thank God I have these. My notes are. I'm a nerd. So, meanwhile, back on Discovery, inside Book's ship, which still doesn't have a name, Book gives Michael. Actually, I think you should hit me with the Book music here, because this is a big moment here. Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Book. I like the way you look. Michael, I'm gonna give you this life science thing that keeps you invisible. Also, you're gonna tell me that you love me, and I'm gonna say, oh yeah, I love you too. Now get out of here and save this ship.
You time that so well every time.
I like the way you look. Oh man, I wish I
Don't
wasn't
you have a gig coming up
song.
Soon? Please tell me that you're actually going to.
Yeah, I'm going to
play
do
that
Book on the gig.
Please do it.
No one will ever pay to see me sing again.
I would. They might not book you.
Just the two of us. Okay, so Book gives her a life signs sort of like blocker that allows her to move about the ship without them knowing that she's there. But he has to stay behind because they know that someone must have been flying the ship. And so he's going to be taken hostage or whatever. We should note that, well, because it's important to me, Grudge is definitely secure before they take Book hostage. Michael goes, Spurs goes, finds Book. Vance realizes, meanwhile, in HQ that it must be Osyraa on the ship, because if he hasn't heard from Saru, and Osyraa knew that half the fleet was in Kaminar, and so on and so forth. So now he's like, all right, he takes an aggressive posture. Book is in fact added to the hostages, but that allows him to give Tilly like sort of the old eyebrow sign that Michael is on the ship and all is well. Meanwhile, in what may have been one of my favorite things that they've done, they give Michael Burnham a full-on John McClane Die Hard sort of subplot here, as the ship has been taken over by the regulators of the chain. And so the first thing she does is she runs up on the chain guy. So she says like hello or hey or something or whatever. Super John McClane. So immediately puts him in like a leg lock. He's able to get a knife out. He has a dagger, puts it in her leg. But even though it's in her leg, she's able to choke him out. And so she has her own. She has to pull the knife out of her leg, and then she takes the radio off of him, and then she limps away. And so Osyraa eventually contacts Vance, and she's like, hey, listen, I just want to negotiate. My name's Minister Osyraa of the Emerald Chain. I'm going to give you back all of your crew except for the bridge crew, with whom I will continue to hold for my own safety. And I think we should talk. And so Vance agrees. He sets up the ready room for a visitor. Michael finds herself in a Jeffries tube where she uses like a, it should be like a, I assume like a health thing, but it sort of looks like she kind of like cauterizes the wound shut, all super tough. And she's able to send a message to her mother that's essentially like, Mayday, but also the way things are going, this could go really south. I may not see you again, but hopefully I will in a distant future. She finds where Stamets is being held by listening to the communications between the regulators, that Aurelio is trying to take the neural lock off of the subject. And so she knows Stamets is in engineering. Vance meets with Osyraa and they begin to negotiate. Meanwhile, the bridge crew, not to be underestimated, are able to, using Morse code, sort of, provoke their captors who are keeping them in their room to...
I did not understand the tapping thing or what they were saying to each other.
Well, when Book asks him right after, he says, what were you saying to him? He says, I told him to keep tapping.
Oh.
They were just trying to annoy them so that they would change positions so that they could then, attack their captors and knock them all out and take their weapons. And then Tilly takes over and she's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. She says, Ren, okay, I need you to break into the systems, hack the chain code so that we can find out first where Michael is, and B, figure out how we can take back the ship. Osyraa and Vance are meeting with the the hologram that Steph lovingly calls Bowtie Boy, which is the biometric lie detector, but he's dressed in all white and wearing a bow tie. It is very, I approve of it, but it is a little goofy.
Of course you do. He's a giant nerd. He looks like one.
Well,
as I drink from your nerdy face.
I'm okay. Well, I'm in the market for now a white bow tie. I don't think I owned one. It's pure white. No, I don't. I've never been invited to a state dinner, white tie and tails, but one day maybe. They have my number. So this is where we find out what Osyraa's plan is. Her idea is that she wants to bring both the chain and the Federation together to create a union, a new federation, if you will. She says the Federation has a spore drive. The Emerald Chain empires don't last forever, and since they're out of dilithium, how could they possibly hope to maintain control? But the Federation has a spore drive that they're not able to recreate or reproduce, and she has a quote the most well-funded science institutions, and so that's why he's called an invigilator, because maybe he's like a professor test giver at the institutions. I don't know. He's a scientist. It sounds menacing to call. Instead of saying Dr. Aurelio, they say Invigilator Aurelio. That's my thinking. We did note while we were watching that Osyraa's accent, her slightly British accent, goes in and out depending on how menacing she wants to be.
Yes. I think when I watched it the second time, I picked up on a few things. So she'll and it's really her T's. So it's she sounds mostly British, but then she'll drop T's every now and again. So I think in one of the scenes with Vance, she said beauty.
Right, exactly.
And then she says, something very like, oh, it's about this and that. Very tits. Sorry, not tits. Oops.
Well, it's all right. We're going to get into some naughty language later. Because my favorite quote of the episode is from Vance, and he definitely... Yeah.
Okay. I really am sober.
It's got 2 T's in it, so it's a good example, I guess. All right.
I could have said tater tots.
It seems like you're deliberately not trying to help me.
This is definitely the most I've ever derailed you.
Oh my God.
And I can't edit this out. I'm doing it to myself as well.
Okay, wait, where am I? Okay, so they're trying to... Yes, Osyraa would like the 2 groups to join together. And so that's what she would like. She thinks the Federation has the ability to project hope even now, even after the burn and the subsequent dissolution. The Federation still represents hope, but the chain has actual power and money behind it. And she says, in the end, we're doing it for each of us, for our people, and that's what really matters. And that's why we need to create this new Federation. Meanwhile, back on Disco, Spurs / Zara, they find this missing comm badge, and they're like, okay, well, there's someone on the ship, even though we don't have a life sign. And so Zara sends folks after Michael, who's still in the Jeffries tube. Aurelio wakes up Stamets, but Stamets is still tied up, and starts to talk to him about science and technology. And they're listening to Andorian opera. And Stamets mentions, hey, I have a family, I have a partner, I have a child. Which we both of us
that
said,
was adorable.
Yeah, it is adorable.
And he meant Adira.
Yes, of course.
Just because I wasn't sure if he was bluffing, but no, he did. He genuinely meant
thought,
Adira.
yeah, but he genuine, of course, yeah. And basically Aurelio's like, hey, I want to figure out how to recreate your system, and we don't know how you speak to the spores, and we know that it can't be, you're not an empath, so it must be the tardigrade DNA in you. And Stamets says, yes, I have the tardigrade DNA, but that species is extinct, and you probably have to kill me to cut it out of me. And Aurelio says, oh no, we can grow the tardigrade cells. Dun 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 yum. So meanwhile, Michael is being closed in upon by the minions of the chain. And while that's happening, Spurs is all like, hey there, calling her by the comm that she stole, which I think was like Z352 or something. He's like, you must be getting pretty nervous in there. We're closing in on you. Maybe you should just give up. But Michael's no fool. She ties herself to some sort of bar. She sets off the fire alarm. It causes the ports to open out into space in order to suppress the fire systems, which means the person who's grabbed onto her to try and take over her, they get jettisoned out into space, taking their shoes with her. And that is just at the time that Tilly and crew are able to hack into the system to try and find Michael's comms. So we all have a breathless moment where we think maybe Michael was sucked out into space along with the people that were trying to capture her. But then she comes back down on the radio and she says, hey, Zara, you're going to need more regulators. Oh, John McClane up in this piece. Die Hard. All right. Well, it was exciting for me. In any case, I also liked that at that point she had no shoes and she was bleeding from her feet, just like in the original Die Hard movie. Mm-hmm. 'Tis the season. That's all I want to say. So we go back to Osyraa and Vance. They're still negotiating, and Osyraa is they're eating food, and Osyraa's making fun of them for using replicators because she's like, this food is not as good as the real thing. And Vance, in a quote that I will happily recite later, explains to her exactly how the replicators work, but is able to tie that back into the idea that they use the replicators so they don't have to commit atrocities to get the sustenance that they need. And what Osyraa wants is for the Federation, if they're going to make this union and for there to be peace, for them to, the Federation to sanction the mercantile exchanges, the capitalism that is the bread and butter, if you will, of the Emerald Chain. However, part of that bread and butter, perhaps a major part of it, is the trade of slavery, which Vance points out. And Osyraa says, she has expended political capital to outlaw slavery throughout the Emerald Chain if it will mean peace and union with the Federation.
And the irony is that the Orions themselves were originally traded as slaves.
Yes.
And they are now trading slaves.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I guess we don't really know, like, they've created a nice big bad here in Osyraa as we see into the season. But as we see in this episode, she really is like just a super powerful senator within the Emerald Chain. So there could be a more bigger, badder kind of like puppet master, moving the strings for next season. I don't know. That's for tinfoil time, really. Okay. So, I'm still so flustered. So
sorry.
It's all right.
Take your time.
Have
some tea.
I can do this. So while they're having this discussion, they both get information about the Emerald Chain people who had been spaced. And I think Vance then knows that maybe something is going on, but he doesn't know quite what it is, as does Osyraa, because she then says, okay, let's quit beating around the bush. And she shows him the agreement, the armistice agreement that she has drawn up. And so Vance says, okay, well, let me get a second to read this. Meanwhile, the bridge crew and Rin are still in the place where they have subdued their captors, but Rin is going to scramble all the life signs on the ship so that no one will know where the bridge crew is. And the bridge crew is going to then try to figure out a way to take back the ship. But in order for it to work, Rin will have to stay behind to sort of take on the people who are coming now to reinforce the captors who are obviously have been subdued. Book also agrees to stay behind. So they do that while the crew goes on ahead. Stamets is trying to reveal to Aurelio, Invigilator Aurelio, that the rose-colored glasses through which he sees, it seems impossible that he wouldn't have known this, but for some reason he seems to think Osyraa is just like sweet and wonderful and doing things for the good of all living beings, all sentient life. And Stamets is sort of exposing that, like, they trade in slaves, and that the advances that they purport to give to places like Quajan, they did by forcing them, to do this or threatening them with starvation and so on and so forth. And I don't know if Aurelio's really convinced. He seems like he's sort of on the fence. And as that's happening, Michael bursts in, stuns everyone in the room, and frees Stamets. However, she's not freeing Stamets so that he can get back into the Spore Cube and jump back to the Verubin Nebula and jump back to the Verubin Nebula in order to save Hugh. And, as he is to find out in this conversation, Adira, who's also down there, because Michael thinks she has to get him off the ship in order to get him away from Osyraa, because that is what Osyraa wants, the Spore Drive. And he's the way the Spore Drive works. And Stamets is not going along with that, so Michael gives him the old Vulcan neck pinch, nerve pinch. Vulcan knocks him out. Vance and Osyraa are like so close to coming to an agreement, dig. He finishes reading through the armistice and he's like, okay, well, so who's going to be the representative for the chain? Because it can't be you. And Osyraa's like, I see where you're going there because my reputation. I'll put someone like a respected doctor as the representative of the chain. And she tells her first lie of the meeting, according to the bow tie boy. And Vance says, this person wouldn't just be a proxy for you, just a puppet for you. And she goes, of course not. And Bowtie Boy goes, that is a lie. And from there, it is disastrous because Vance says, listen, they can't be just a proxy for you. And also, if this is going to work, then once we sign these papers, part of it is going to have to be that you turn yourself in to be prosecuted for the crimes you have committed, which Osyraa takes great offense at. And it basically leads to everything sort of falling apart. And before she storms out, Vance says, if you do this, it's for our people. If it's truly a sacrifice you think is worth it, I am willing to do it. I can promise you justice. And Osyraa's response is, oh, I can promise you the same. And then she storms out. So Rin and Book taken prisoner, but the bridge crew is able to escape. Osyraa returns to Discovery. Osyraa sees Aurelio on the bridge. She says, I need you to leave because what I have to do now is what I have to do. And I don't know if you want to see it. And he insists on seeing it because now maybe he's had a change of heart or he wants to know what's truly going on. She says, fine, you can see, but it won't be pleasant. She tasks Spurs with figuring out what is going on with the ship and to prevent anyone from leaving because they have lost their bargaining chip. But as that is happening, super smart Michael has basically put Stamets in some sort of like escape bubble and not using an airlock. She sets a phaser to overload. It's destroying a porthole, which whisks him out into space, but he has a homing beacon on him. So he is able to be pulled in via tractor beam to Federation HQ. However, Paul is very upset about this. He curses Michael, and I don't know if she's ever going to get over that. It's pretty rough. That was a pretty rough one.
Yeah. We followed you into the future.
We came here so that you wouldn't be alone. We gave up everything.
Yes.
How can you do this?
Guilt.
But Michael makes the tough calls. It's hard. She's not even a captain. She's not even on like command staff anymore. She's still got to make tough calls.
Kirky and Coles.
So on the bridge, Osyraa has her two prisoners. On the bridge, Osyraa has her two prisoners, Rin and Book, and she basically grabs one of the big red laser rifle things that everyone seems to use in the chain. I don't know what you call them. And she's like, fix my sensors or else. And Rin says, no. And she says, this is not the time to grow a spine. And Rin says, oh, I've seen what true bravery is. I've seen what true duty and loyalty and love is. And you no longer terrify me. You only have fear, and fear cannot last forever. And just as she's then about to shoot him out of spite, Book caves and says, I'll tell you where all the dilithium is, because there's all that. There's a planet made out of dilithium in the Verubin Nebula. And he says, I'll tell you exactly where it is and how to get in and out, because it's unsafe to go into the nebula, but I know where you can go. And I'll do it in exchange for the lives of Rin and the bridge crew. And Osyraa thinks this over for a minute, and then she disintegrates Rin. And then she's like, all right, get some truth serum for Book, because I want to make sure this is true.
She looks like she's about to say yes to that and let Rin live.
No, I think she just hated Rin so much, right? It's part of her reign of terror, to make you not sort of know how her mind works, you know? She did the same thing to her nephew when she was like, oh, you got to go. You're just like your father. And he's like, oh, thanks. And she's like, I'm going to feed you to the transworm. So finally, our final scene, Tilly et al., they get to the armory. They take over the people that are in there, knock them all out. They blow the force field that's on all the phasers. They grab all the weapons. Tilly says, take as many as you can. Take as many weapons as you can. We don't have much time. We make it to the bridge no matter what. That means if somebody falls, we keep going. Then they hear a noise and they all swing around to it, and they're super worried about it. And who or what should have created that noise that made them think someone was creeping up on them? But a drone, the cute little drones from the intro. And they're called Dot 23s. And one drone comes up and it shows the footage of Buster Keaton. And Tilly's like, you're the sphere data. What's up? And she's like, yeah, we sure are. Because the sphere data has hidden its information of itself out of once the ship was taken over in the Dot 23s. And Tilly says, are you going to help us? And the sphere data says, quote, I am at your service, Captain. Shall we take back the ship? And then I think they try to do like a live long and prosper.
Oh, is that what that was?
With their hands. I thought maybe that's what it was.
Did you not think that whole moment was very like Disney's WALL-E?
Well, they can't. The drones look like WALL-E.
Well, they do, but it was more just like.
Or they look like Luna.
Yeah,
Luna.
Ava. Get it right.
Ava. That's right. Yeah.
But they look like Ava for one thing, and also then they projected that sort of image, and that's what WALL-E did.
That's what WALL-E did.
He projected the image.
Mm-hmm. I agreed. It was very, very WALL-E-esque. Listen,
right,
there were many.
But you had the Die Hard thing at the same, in the same episode, and I was like,
yeah.
What?
I wasn't mad about it. We're gonna get more Die Hard because they have to take back the ship. That's gonna be the last episode, right? It's just gonna be them taking over the bridge and trying to get back to the nebula in order to save Saru, Hugh, and Adira and Sukal. And stop a second burn from happening. I mean, I don't know how they're going to wrap this all up. As usual, I have no idea how they're going to do this in one episode, but they'll figure out a way.
Indeed.
It will be a fugue of madness. Whew. And so that is episode 12 of season 3, Star Trek Discovery.
Indeed.
Or, if you prefer this pronunciation, Disco Very. I forget what we do now. Oh.
Do you want to go to tinfoil time, or do you want to go straight to quotable moments?
Let's go to quotable moments.
Quotable moments. This is a rather good impression of me.
Thank you. Well, I am a vocalist by heart. Okay, so I gave you the Tilly quote, which I really enjoyed at the end. Take as many weapons as you can carry. We don't have much time. We make it to the bridge no matter what. That means that if somebody falls, we keep going. Really enjoyed that. Did you have a quote that you enjoyed particularly?
I liked Rin's. I feel like it must have been literally the last thing he said. And he said, all you have is fear.
Yeah.
And no one is feared forever.
That was a beautiful line. You're totally right. The justice thing I thought was a cool thing, where Vance says, I can give you justice. And Osyraa says, oh, I can promise you the same. And then, of course, I really enjoyed Vance's bit of profanity. bleep this as you
About the
may
apples.
about the apples. They're eating apples, and Osyra's teasing him about it. And Vance says, "It's made of our shit, you know. That's the base material that we use in our replicators. We deconstruct it to the atomic level and then reform the atoms. It's pretty good for shit. And we don't have to commit atrocities for it." I thought that was a well-rounded way to state your position on the negotiations.
It was a good little comeback because
Yeah.
she was teasing him and saying, "You've never tasted a real apple?"
No.
And he was like, "No, it's all reconstituted shit.
But
But we don't have to commit
yeah,
atrocities to
we
get
don't
our
have to.
food."
Yeah, we don't have to tell people that they're going to suffer famine planet-wide and have all their children die because we suck. Anyway, so I mean, what's going to happen? I don't know.
Well, with the little sneak preview that you get at the end of the episode, do you
Mhm.
watch those or do you turn off? You didn't watch it?
I sort of look, but try not to. No, I don't really watch those. You know how I feel about
Fine.
spoils. Sometimes I see them. I saw some like, oh, we got to do this, pew 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 pew, you know, but I don't close.
Fine. But we get a hint that they are going to throw it back to the Kobayashi Maru.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not in the true sense of the test, but it's, I
yeah.
think literally someone says, this is a no-win situation. And Michael says, well, I don't believe in those. Very Kirkian.
So Kirk. Yeah.
So
Oh, it is a no-win situation. It's like, take back the ship, take care of Osyraa, or get back to the Verubin Nebula within the next, they have like maybe 16 hours, maybe 12 hours to get back there, get in. The ship is still limping. It barely had time to repair itself from its first trek into the nebula. And first trek into the nebula. I mean, it's gonna be messy. I don't know who's going to die, but someone is going to die. That's my theory.
For sure. Someone is definitely going to die.
What I said last week that did sound goofy, but it's still possible that Gray will have something to do with
You
the
do
burn.
get a quick view of Gray. We do.
We do?
Yeah, but that's it. Literally a quick view.
I feel like
Gray. Who has blue hair in this?
Gray.
Adira blue. Anyway.
Well. Well, because are they changed? Because I guess Adira is going to be changed. Adira's going to be some others. No, Adira's human, which I think is fine within the hollow thing, right? They're not going to turn them into
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
or something.
Are there humans? Oh yes, there are humans in the thing. So, but then Culber got changed to a Bajoran, and he is human. So.
True. Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen. Oh yeah. And Saru got turned into a human. It's bonkers. It's simply bonkers. But I my hope is that there'll be some cool thing that Gray does where Gray with the melody somehow has something to do with the burn and get in there and stop the thing, save everyone, and turn all the dilithium, and so it splits, and then the emerald chain takes some, but maybe Osyraa gets her comeuppance, but the rest of them are able to get away. But Aurelio's going to be thinking, oh, am I on the wrong side of this? Or maybe he'll come over to the Federation in the end, and then they'll have to deal with the emerald chain in its entirety in season 4. That's
all
my
right.
theory.
I like it. Shall we wrap this puppy up?
Let's wrap this bad boy up. Oh.
Next time on Set Phasers.
You know what? I forgot to look up the episode title because I just know it's the last
it
episode.
Is. There. You are the last. You are the Hope Part 2, whatever it is.
It's The Hope Is You Part 2?
Yes.
I thought it wasn't that. Oh, they changed it.
No, it is that. It's This Hope Is You. The thing, the hope.
That Hope Is You.
It's You Part 2.
That Hope Is You Part 1. But it wasn't that when we looked at the list of episodes earlier. So they must have just changed it because there was no explanation for That Hope Is You.
I remember we looked that up and we were like, it's part 1 of none.
Yeah, exactly.
That's bonkers.
Well, I like it. That's fine. They kept us on the edge of our. So next week we'll be talking about season finale. Seems so crazy to say, the season finale of season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. When this year began, Steph, we had no idea we would be here.
No, we didn't.
When this year began, we knew because it was 16 hours ago.
Yeah. But in terms of COVID grateful things, we got to do our podcast that we said we would do and couldn't get around to.
It's a wonderful thing. maybe the only good thing about pandemic is that all the jokes that we made about things that we would do if we ever had time that we knew we never have time for, we're able to do now. So thank you, Steph, for you. And thank you, Discovery.
Thank you for you.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us. A segue. If you enjoyed the program, you can catch us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook Live or as a podcast every Monday, wherever podcasts come from. Please, please, please rate us and subscribe.
Please do. We are on Facebook and Instagram, and my meme game is on point.
So true.
Yep. So we are at Set Phasers Podcast or at Set Phasers. So feel free to follow us and join in the conversation of all things Trek.
If you want to support us in our continuing mission, and the mission will continue to discover what Discovery has in store for us, we'd only be delighted. Look, I guess at the bottom, the lower third or whatever. You can patronize us. We can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers. And in fact, you have like a day and a half to join if you want to be part of our live watching experience. It's not called Netflix Party anymore, but Netflix Party experience, essentially.
Party.
Yeah,
We are watching on Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's a Netflix
It's a
watch
party and
but
it's on Netflix.
via Tele
That's right.
Party. Yeah, it'll be fun. And we're watching the first TNG holodeck episode in honor of the latest episode with the holodeck with Su'Kal. So join us for that. It will be super fun. It's like Picard's first foray into the Dick Tracy one. It will be super fun.
It's great. Costumes, accents, the whole nine.
Oh yeah, the whole 9 yards. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening. I am Steph Mans.
And I am Aki Vermees, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.